Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Raquel Brown. I am the Chief Executive Officer for the St. Kitts Tourism Authority. The Honorable Lindsay Grant, Minister of Tourism, Transport and Ports, Ms. Teresa Walwyn, Deputy Chairperson for the Board of Directors, St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Mr. Keithley Phillip, CEO of SCASPA, Ms. Giselle Matthews, President of the Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Commerce, Ms. Pat Walters, CEO of the Cable, taxi presidents, members of the media, those of you who are watching on ZIZ Live, listening on the radio, or on our social media platforms, good morning. I really would like to extend an appreciation to the stakeholders and members of the media who are participating this morning in our media briefing. It's been a very exciting week for St. Kitts. We saw yesterday the Allure of the Seas return to our port. On Wednesday, we had our first day of 3 ships in port, and Aida Perla doing her inaugural call. It's been such an overwhelming 2 weeks because we knew this was coming, but we just didn't know the length and breadth of the excitement it would bring for us and for all of us in the destination. We promised we would deliver. We promised we would bring ships. We promised it would be a phased approach to rebuilding cruise tourism. To date, we have had Holland America, Mystic Cruises, Celebrity Cruises, AIDA Cruise Line, Viking Cruise Line, Carnival Cruise Line, Royal Caribbean, and P&O return to our ports. We have seen an increase in our calls, and Minister Grant this morning will give you a recap of where we started in November and where we're going in December. We have worked tirelessly to make this happen, but without you, our stakeholders, this would not be possible. You have ensured that not one cruise passenger or one person working in the cruise tourism industry, resulting in further increase of any cases of COVID-19. At this time, I ask the Honorable Lindsay Grant, our Minister of Tourism, Transport and Ports, to give his remarks. Thank you. Minister. That was on in my head.
A pleasant good morning to all. Let me first apologize for the absence of Mrs. Carleen Henry Morton, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. Today is our Professional Development Day, and so she is conducting the proceedings next door, so I want to apologize for her. Ms. Raquel Brown, the CEO of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Mr. Keithley Phillip, CEO of SCASPA, Ms. Turfida Stewart, the CFO, Mrs. Giselle Matthews, the President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mrs. Pat Walters, the CEO of Cable, board members of the SKTA, taxi presidents, specially invited guests, members of the media, a pleasant good morning. I would like to thank you, the stakeholders and members of the media, for joining us this morning. I promise to continually update the media and the public on the progress of the rebuilding of the cruise sector. And so today is another installment in the fulfillment of this purpose, as I did on the 27th of October, 2021. The destination is at a critical juncture in rebuilding of tourism, and more specifically, the cruise sector. This destination, prior to the COVID-19, had established itself as a marquee port. For 2 years in a row, in 2018 and 2019, we welcomed over 1 million cruise passengers. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our trajectory came to a screeching halt. This path has brought with it much uncertainty as destinations and cruise lines try to maneuver the pandemic and resume operations with very little answers, as this road has never been traveled before. The Chief Executive Officer of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority and I have reiterated from time and time again that our strategy is to take a phased approach to rebuild the cruise sector. Since we began our phased approach to rebuilding the cruise sector on July the 22nd, we have experienced significant growth. In a mere 4 months, we have moved from welcoming 1 ship per week to welcoming 10 ships in 1 week. Furthermore, when we began, our main product offerings included only cruise ship book tours, as both the destination restrictions and cruise lines requirements limited the movement of cruise visitors while they were visiting the destination. At that time in July, we were experiencing our 3rd wave of the virus. Critical decisions had to be made to make adjustments to our protocols to facilitate the resumption of cruise, with the goal of ensuring that the safety of our nationals, the safety of our residents, and the safety of our visitors. Our success today would not have been possible without the following. 1, acceptance of the antigen testing for fully vaccinated travelers. And 2, offering of fully vaccinated travel approved experiences. Both of the above assisted us in creating confidence in the destination. This week, I am proud to report that we have received a cruise ship every single day this week for the very first time since the pandemic closed down our cruise sector in 2020. In fact, on Tuesday, we had our first 3-ship day, with Aida Perla making an inaugural call, bringing 1,675 passengers. Celebrity Equinox with 1,835 passengers. Explorer of the Seas with 1,794 passengers. And the Allure of the Seas with 3,238 passengers in port just yesterday. Over the past months, we have seen a gradual and steady increase in our calls. In July, we had just 2 calls, bringing 236 passengers. In August, 4 calls, bringing 299 passengers. In September, 6 calls, bringing 1,763 passengers. In October, 8 calls, bringing 2,373 passengers. In November, 17 calls, bringing 23,040 passengers to St. Kitts. We have had 3 inaugurals to date. The Viking Orion on the 25th of October, 2021. The Celebrity Apex on the 10th of November, 2021. And the Aida Perla on Tuesday the 16th, November, 2021. We are indeed stepping in the right direction as we celebrate a remarkable November, with 31 cruise calls slated for November. This week we have had daily calls. Weekly we have 2 ships and 3 ship days. And we had visits from the world's biggest cruise ship, Allure of the Seas. And Harmony of the Seas is scheduled to arrive on the 27th of November 2021 with over 4,000 passengers. Indeed, St. Kitts 2021-2022 cruise season is off to a spectacular start. Our strategy, although not perfect, is working because the outlook for the cruise sector looks very bright. Having identified protocols that are harmonious throughout the region and which allow for increased cruise visitation, December will be epic as we are poised to welcome 58 calls in December. Also, what is even more remarkable is that we will have almost daily calls from the 5th of December to the 31st of December. We only have 3 days in December with no ships. And what I will say to you, we have 6 cruise ships in one day on the 16th of December. So on the 16th of December, we have 6 cruise ships in one day. We have 4 cruise ships on the 7th, on the 9th, and on the 30th of December. We have 3 cruise ships on the 13th, the 17th, the 19th, and the 27th of December. And we have multiple 2 cruise ship days. Isn't that wonderful? With this growth, we continue to expand our tour offerings to include more of our nationals so that we can spread the dollar more around. We have approved 11 independent operators who are booking online and are able to go to Port Zante and meet their guests and facilitate their tours. These include ATVs, the dune buggies, the open air safaris, excursions to travel-approved sites and rainforest hikes, full island and panoramic tours. We continue to inspect sites and beaches to the list of travel-approved sites and locations, and we have added Cockleshell Beach, Spice Mill, and Reggae Beach, and Frigate Bay Beach in the Vibes Beach Bar area to our offerings. We currently have 125 independent taxi operators who are travel approved, and 113 of those are approved to work in the cruise sector. For the period September 14th to 18th of November 2021, we have dispatched 154 jobs to them. That's what have been dispatched at our dispatching site. But I want to point out that on Wednesday the 17th of November, on that 3-ship day, Cantors dispatched 156 persons. Cantors. But 140 of the 156 dispatched by Cantors were done by the Laimiga Taxi Association. So it's been spread around. It's not only the big fish, as we say. The small individual taxi operator are getting their due worth. Our goal is to continue to expand our product and our service offerings. For the taxi operators who are not yet travel approved, please note that to be included in the rotation at the RLB and Port Zante, taxi operators must be fully vaccinated and must have attended the travel approved training and must have retrofitted their vehicles with the plexiglass or the Velcro seal. If you are not yet travel approved, we are waiting for you to come on board. To the Port Zante merchants, if your store is still not yet travel approved, please note the following criteria. 1, all staff members must be fully vaccinated. 2, your store must be inspected by the COVID-19 task force in collaboration with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority to ensure that it meets the minimum health and safety requirements. For restaurants and for beach bars, please submit your proposal complete with your health and safety protocols to the St. Kitts Tourism Authority for review and for consideration by the COVID-19 task force. Your employees must also be fully vaccinated and must have attended the travel-approved training. We have begun discussions with the Alarup vendors, and those who are fully vaccinated recently completed their travel-approved training. For our primate petting vendors, we will be engaging them with Dr. Henry next week to discuss their operations. We will continue to review the system with the goal of continued improvement so we can increase opportunities to earn. The system is in place is to manage the flow of our guests and to reduce the risk of exposing COVID-19 to the general public. I fully understand that our independent tour operators are challenged by the dispatching changes. However, we are operating in a pandemic, and the health of our people and our guests is top priority. I see one of the taxi presidents is here. We engaged them yesterday for almost 4 hours to come to an amicable solution to the dispatching process at Port Zante, which they have said is unfair and unreasonable. We are here to listen, and so we took up almost 4 hours yesterday to hear their concerns, and those concerns will be addressed in the ensuing days. I can assure you, however, that the teams at the Ministry of Tourism and the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, along with the COVID-19 task force, will work with the taxi presidents to ensure that the dispatching is done in a fair and in a transparent manner. Yesterday, my team and I met with the members of the cabinet, a port agent, representatives from 2 of the major tour companies, and members of the taxi fraternity to discuss the present tour offerings and the dispatching system. I want us to take note of the growth, understanding the following factors. 1, ships are still sailing at 40 to 60% capacity. 2, cruise vessels are still cautious about passengers exploring the island independently, as they want to ensure that the health and safety protocols can mitigate the risks that are in place. We are now seeing increased calls, and naturally with them, we see opportunity. However, I want us to manage our expectations. We are still nowhere close to the levels of growth that were in existence prior to the COVID-19. And it is for this reason that we must understand what is now required of us if we are to sustain our rebuilding efforts. The marketplace is very competitive, and guests are seeking experiences that are not only entertaining, but safe and of value. By all reports, our calls to date have been successful, as our visitors have returned to the shores without any incidents of any COVID-19 related cases. This means that our protocols are working. However, I will not be satisfied until our nationals and our residents are able to sustain their livelihood from what has always been a lucrative industry. We continue to press forward towards this goal, but I continue to caution that this is still a gradual process for both our cruise lines partners and us as a destination. I'm also going to take the opportunity this morning to give an update on infrastructural work by the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority, SCASPA. With the support of the central government, SCASPA will embark on essential dredging work at its seaports, both at the cargo port in Bird Rock and at Port Zante on both piers. The work at the cargo port and at Cruise Pier 1 would be that of maintenance dredging to ensure that there is adequate clearance under the vessel's keel to allow for safe berthing. In the process, SCASPA would take the opportunity to ensure that Cruise Pier 1 is capable of accommodating the largest class vessels on either side of the pier. The dredge work on Pier 2, however, is corrective dredging, which would allow Pier 2 to safely accommodate 2 Oasis-class vessels, even at negative sea level. Now, I do not want anyone to say that I have been saying that we can take 3 Oasis-class ships, so why this work now? For the last 19 months, we have had no ships, and I am ensuring that St. Kitts is prepared to accommodate any class ship that is currently in operation either by the Royal Caribbean Group, Carnival Cruise Line, MSC, or Norwegian Cruise Lines. The progress must not be held up. When the dredging is completed, Port Zante would be at a depth of 37 feet or 11.5 meters consistently throughout, giving SCASPA's marine pilots and berthing officers greater capacity to position vessels where they are best suited based upon the size and the wave conditions, and provide tremendous comfort to the ship captains. This will also minimize the likelihood of liability to SCASPA for damage to vessels while in port. This project is expected to cost just about $2 million, and the works will be done by Blue Ocean Marine Limited over a period of 12.5 weeks. The initial program with the dredge company had a November 2021 start date over an 8-week period. However, the very impressive resumption of cruise has resulted in the delayed start of the project and extended the period of time for completion. With the cruise schedule as it is developing, works can only be done at nights and during the period when there are no vessels in port. The new start date is the middle of January 2022. This means also that SCASPA would have to maneuver its berthing reservations to maximize the use of the piers at their current dredge depths. Blue Ocean Marine Limited, formerly known as DevCon, is an Antiguan-based dredge company with majority ownership by Meridian Construction, located in Tortola. The company is no stranger to the Federation, It has executed projects such as the beach reclamation at Four Seasons Nevis, Timothy Beach in St. Kitts, and the dredging of the Christopher Harbour. In addition, the company is currently engaged on a dredge project at the Antigua Cruise Port, removing hard material similar to that which is required at Port Zante. Some of the projects undertaken by the company includes: 1, the deepening of the A.C. Watty Cruise and Cargo Facility excavation site work for Indigo Bay in St. Martin, and mechanical dredging in Simpson Bay Lagoon, all in St. Martin. The fisheries complex and to deepen the Heritage Pier in North Berth in St. John's, Antigua, and development of golf courses in Jolly Harbor, Antigua, and Canawan in the Grenadines. Dredging and construction of marine facilities in Chub Cay, in Exuma and Nassau, Bahamas. Dredging of Leeward Channel in Provo, Turks and Caicos, and dredging the Rio River in Santo Domingo. The company has exceptional experience in dredging in marine and geological works in the Caribbean, and boasts some of the best equipment in the region for tackling stubborn, hard material under the ocean. The project is scheduled to be completed at the end of April 2022. I again take this time to remind everyone that the work will be done at nights due to the number of ships scheduled for calls at Port Zante between January to April of 2022. At my last press conference, I announced 27 vessels for November and 51 vessels for December. As of today, we are now at 31 calls for November and 58 calls for December. My team and I have worked assiduously to ensure we had a cruise season this winter. And I can say with full confidence that we are beginning to reap the fruits of our hard labor, and cruise is on the rebound, but with limitations due to the regulations put in place by global governments, the US organizations such as the CDC, and what we must do along with our task force is to mitigate the spread of the disease. The US, which is our main source of supply for cruise visitors, continues to implement safety measures to regulate the sector. But it must be noted that these regulations have over time become less restrictive, and cruise lines are now able to expand their operations with fully vaccinated passengers and crew, testing at terminals, onboard testing, and quarantine and isolation procedures on board. Our continued success and our ability to reduce restrictions will require an all-of-society approach. I continue to solicit the assistance of the general public and all of our stakeholders to follow the protocols that have been put in place to mitigate the risk of the spread of the COVID-19. The challenge for us today is to safely deliver an authentic and safe Kittitian experience to our visitors. I continue to solicit the assistance and the understanding of the public as we continue to take our steps forward to rebuild the sector. I am of the firm belief that we are taking steps in the right direction. And as we progress, I will continue to keep the public updated. Thank you for your time.
At this time, I'll ask the members of the media and for other guests here at the press conference to ask questions to the head table and Minister Grant. The mic is at the back, beside the cameras. You're welcome to comments.
Good morning, Jason Davis of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. You've made it clear that the reopening of the tourism sector is being taken in a phased approach, and we're in the early parts of that approach. Can you give us any insight as to what some of the long-term plans are for the reopening?
Jason Davis, thanks very much for that question. As I said, we are taking a phased approach. I'm hopefully expectant, let me put it that way, that we will see some lessening again of restrictions come December, and hopefully with our increase in our vaccination, which as I recall is somewhere in the region of 78%, 79%. I'm advised that we just need 622 more persons to be vaccinated, 622 to be vaccinated to reach 80%. I suspect when we reach that figure, that landmark figure of 80%, we will see some lessening of our restrictions, and we are then into a different phase. So it's a work in progress, and we are very hopeful. I, like you, I'm sure, I want to see the defense come down at Port Zante, and we get back to some state of normalcy. And I think we are very close to that. And I think if we continue as a country to put our heads together and, approach this matter in an all-of-society approach, I think we'll get there sooner rather than later.
Good morning, Glenn Batt SK Newsline. Minister, you mentioned earlier in your presentation about discussions you've had with the Taxi Association. Now, we have had many complaints from taxi operators about the very same thing, about what's happening at Port Zante, the dispatching process, things being unfair, some people are not getting work at all. What were the issues discussed, and what were the agreements arrived at in your discussions? That's one. Secondly,
Mr. Batt, can I take them one by one?
Sure, okay.
I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, so let me take them one by one. Yes, I'm glad you raised that, and the taxi president is here, so he can correct me if I misrepresent what happened yesterday. I think yesterday's dialogue was fruitful. It was the dialogue in which we allowed the taxi presidents and taxi fraternity to come before the task force and myself as the Minister of Tourism to air their grievances as to what they considered was an unfair dispatching system at Port Zante. I want to put it, however, in its historical context. Prior to COVID, the dispatching was done by the taxi presidents. We had always had a bombardment by the majority of the taxi fraternity saying to us that dispatching by the taxi president was unfair, and that they were unfairly getting jobs and dispatching jobs to their friends unfairly. That was the cry from the majority. And the majority of the taxi operators wanted us to change the system to have SKTA and the Ministry of Tourism dispatch. Fast forward that COVID came. We took the opportunity, having heard the cries of the majority of the taxi operators, to change the system. We went to a system that they said, as the majority, they wanted, which was for the SKTA, Ministry of Tourism, to dispatch. We did that. Now we have done that based upon the majority cry. They have now come and said they want to revert to the old system. That is the facts. Those are the facts. So, they are disgruntled. And so the discussions yesterday centered a lot around that. okay? Say they were unfairly treated. The big companies like Cantors and what's the name, Sunlink were getting all the jobs. Scenic Railway, sorry, getting all the jobs. And that is why I made mention of the fact that on Wednesday the 17th, when we had the three-ship day, and Cantors dispatched 156 tours to, dispatch 156 tours, 140 of them, out of the 156, were dispatched by taxi operators under the umbrella of the Limega Taxi Association. So the moral of this story is that what appears to be the situation may not necessarily always be so. Because we, the Tourism Authority, dispatched 156 over a period, 154 over a period, but we did not count in the 140. Because we would not have known until yesterday that 140 were dispatched by Cantors, but really went to the Limega Taxi Association. So, having said that, however, we are prepared to sit down with the taxi presidents and the fraternity to see if we can arrive at a more amicable situation in the eyes of the taxi presidents and the taxi associations. And we are always open to, because we're in this together. It is not us against them or them against us. We are in this together. And so we will sit down over the next couple of days and see if we can arrive at a more amicable position, and that everyone walks away from the table at least happier than when we first sat down.
It's a follow-up question.
Sure.
At Port Sante, in the bubble situation, some of the merchants are complaining that because of the way the tours are operated, when they return to Port Sante, they disembark close to the pier, so the passengers basically go back to the ships almost immediately. They're saying that they are missing out on opportunities where persons who could have walked through Port Sante on their way to the pier may drop into their stores and they may get some sales. So my question is there an opportunity to take one of the parking lots that is further in from the pier to disembark passengers? In other words, put that into the bubble, so when they disembark the buses, they are actually walking through Port Sante, and perhaps more sales would be generated that way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bart. I'm not sure that's what you said is entirely correct. But in terms of the nitty-gritty of it, I'll turn it over to the CEO to explain the operational side of it more clearly than I can explain it.
Just for everyone to know, when we started, yes, the tour buses were returning to the drop-off nearby the loading area, which is basically where you come off of the gangway and you would turn right, because we no longer have the western side. When Celebrity Equinox came for the first 2 calls, that's how it was. When we had our first call on November 1st, we got feedback from Port Sante merchants. And by the second week of November, that was changed. The drop-off area has now been included to be where the traditional drop-off area is, where you come in by the first roundabout and where the taxi shops, where the taxi loading area would be. That's where it is, where the bathroom is. They are exiting there, and so they actually start from Cheers, which is basically the bottom of Port Sante, and they're walking up. I think what has happened, and if we're going to be very honest, and Minister said, the ships are coming with 40 to 60% of persons. That's the first thing. We see people, and it's the general expectations that persons are going to be shopping as they shopped previously. They're going through, even though they took a vacation because they want a vacation, they too have financial constraints. So they're being extremely frugal in what they're purchasing. Thirdly, we also have to take into consideration that they're going to other ports, and there's something called competition. And they're choosing what they want, where they want to spend their money. It is going to get better, but I think we have to take into consideration what COVID has done economically. And some of these persons had cruise trips from in 2020, but they're postponed to now. And so, yes, they have their trip, but maybe they don't have the economic means that they probably had. It's been 18 months. We don't know what is going on. So the same situation that many of us are facing here, the world is facing it. You see in the United States that there's an increase in inflation. Persons are choosing whether or not what jobs they take when they go back to work, even though they may have vacations that they're taking, that they've paid for already. So I think we just need to remember this is a phased approach, and people cruising right now are also in their phased approach to resuming cruise. For some of us who have taken vacations, our attitude is not the same as it was pre-2020. So it's a matter of being frugal, and it will get better. Yes, we know we used to have 3 ships and we would have 6,000 persons on one day, more than. And persons would be shopping. I think we just need to understand and be patient. We actually got Harmony of the Seas, and Minister didn't say it, so I'm going to say it for Minister. We got the ship from Antigua. So that is a tremendous win for us. It was after yesterday, the conclusion and the confirmation came through after we finished that cabinet. We understand what everyone is saying, and maybe there may have been doubt that we would not have been able to deliver what we're delivering, but we're delivering it. So just as the visitors come in, they're taking a vacation because they too need to get away. Yes, there are constraints. We're in a phased approach. We don't want to have an outbreak. I saw in New Zealand, they're shutting down the whole country again last night. So I think we just need to be cautious. We're doing what we can. It's not exactly where we all want it to be, but it is coming in line. And the most important thing is that the vessels that generate income for so many in St. Kitts and Nevis are coming. But the drop-off areas for Port Zante have been rectified. On the eastern side, it is where the old Digicel office is. They can drop off and they start at the bottom by chairs where it has always been. On the western side, no, we don't have it there because it would require some additional changes to the fencing, and it's not that simple with how persons walk through in that area, but we have changed the drop-off area.
Good morning, Chairman Abel. 2 questions. The first question has to do specifically, I don't know if this was mentioned in the minister's speech, but can you say, I know next month is a bumper period for cruise in St. Kitts and Nevis, and if I could recall hearing correctly, there is one day where there will be about 5-6 ships docked here. Can you just explain what preparations are in place specifically to accommodate the large amount of cruise vessels and passengers that will be coming off? I know it's going to be 40-50% capacity on these ships, but in terms of the measures that are currently in place, I know you're saying, you know, some changes may come, but as we stand right now, they're in place. What measures, plans the Ministry of Tourism, the Tourism Association are thinking of or are considering putting in place or changing with regards to accommodating that amount of ships? Because I know all 6 wouldn't be berthed directly at Port Zante. The second question has to do, it's 2 parts. One, you spoke about the dredging work and all of that. The question that came to mind and would be asked is, why is the ministry considering this point in time and not last year during the slow period, during the lockdown period? And the second question has to do specifically with why is the government at this point in time considering spending the funds when the last contract, if I'm correct, should have been the ones dealing specifically with any rectification and upgrading work to be done at the second cruise pier? Thanks.
Let me answer the last question first. The government, well, let me back up a bit. SCASPA went into arbitration with the last construction team for the pier. I can't divulge the information because it's on the seal. In fact, my CFO made a statement at a press conference, and we were written to by lawyers of CCC, said we can't divulge information because of the arbitration documents. What I can tell you, however, is that we are prepared to do dredging work that is necessary at this point in time, pending whatever legal outcomes that we may have with them in the future, okay? The fact is that we want to ensure that the pier, as it stands, can take the largest ships in the world. The fact of the matter is, and in all practicality, there is a little area in pier number 2 that has some hard rock that we have to dredge, and that's the bottom line. Because of the financial impact on this economy, the government is prepared to have SCASPA do the dredging, and whatever legal ramifications come thereafter, we will deal with that. Whether or not we are going to get back the monies that we spent now, which we think we will get back, it's another matter. But as far as we're concerned, it's a business decision, and it is a decision that will inure to the benefit of taxi drivers, hay braiders, alloy rope vendors, and we feel as a government we have to proceed with it. I don't know if that answers your question. You said, why now? The dredging company is right now in Antigua. We have to do it now because if they demobilize and go back to the US, it will cost us more, maybe about $1 million more. So in terms of business decision, we need to go now. We didn't go prior because we were still in arbitration and still waiting to see the outcome of that. But now that has been dealt with, we now have to go to the next stage, which is we now have to deal with the rectification of Pier 2. The CEO will answer the first part.
Your question was about preparation. We've been working with the task force and our stakeholders. If we are still within the bubble, what is important at this point in time is health and safety. And so we are still requiring that everyone that is coming off the vessel or anyone that's 12 and over, they're fully vaccinated. If persons who are not vaccinated, which are younger than 11 and younger, they will have to do an RT-PCR test. If the fence is down and we don't have bubble vaccinated tours, those requirements still stand. They don't change. The objective is to ensure that we maintain safety. One of the things that we have to do is to provide the variety of tours and the experience, because that is what persons are coming for. Yesterday, in fact, on the call post-cabinet, one of the reasons why we're getting the vessel, yes, Antigua is known for 365 beaches. However, the diversity of tours that we were able to set to advise them that we do have, and the capacity right now for ShoreX, which at this point in time when the Celebrity Apex and the Harmony are in, for ShoreX, which is just cruise ship, we're not talking our independent, is over 7,000. We are working with the task force to open up the capacity of the tours, not just the frequency, and they're working with us to do that. We believe that when the 6 vessels are here, We will be more than at that point because we've also received additional tours opened from Nevis. All of these tours have met the requirements that persons are fully vaccinated. They have done the travel approved training, and they have met the requirements for security, meaning that there is security in place to prevent any interaction. Now, we know the destination, that's not what we're about. We have not sold the destination, we don't market the destination in that space. However, we are working with the parameters that we're given, but our goal is, regardless of whether or not we're still in the bubble vaccinated space or we're not, we're going to still maintain that persons have to be vaccinated in a prescribed area to operate. The travel approved tours are what we're working with. The 6 ships that are in are Allure, in addition to some other vessels such as Viking, Windsurf, Silver Spirit, Royal Clipper, Caribbean Princess. Now, some of these vessels, some of them will be docked in the marina area, some will be going to South Friars. So it adds to the diversity. The fact that we also have additional beaches now that have opened up, it also allows us to provide what we need. So what we're doing, in our humble opinion, and working with the task force, is maintaining the balance with engaging the economics for our country, but also managing health. We believe that we can handle it. The team was really tested and will continue to be tested. We're not perfect, but we're working through the process. And I think next week, Wednesday, is actually a confirmation to the Royal Caribbean Group and a testimony to St. Kitts that we're able to deliver and give great experiences, because all around we need both Shorex and independent tours. It's not just one. We need all of our tour operators, independent and those who work directly with the ships, for this to work. Without that capacity, harmony would not be coming.
Over the past couple of years, I think some attention has been placed on the development of the strip here at Frigate Bay. But I think COVID-19 made some halt to the work that has been transpiring on the ground. Can you give an update as to what now is happening on the strip? And is there any plan to expand that kind of development to South Friars Bay? And then secondly, could you comment on some word that there was to be, as the Minister of Transport, a new ferry service operating between St. Kitts and St. Martin and perhaps some other islands? I think the name of the boat would have been MV Macana or something along those lines.
Okay, so I can answer your last question first. I have no knowledge of that. So you're probably in a better space than I am in. I suspect it may come to me at some point in time, but I know nothing as I speak this morning in terms of that. In terms of this trip, Frigate Bay, if you have recently been over to the Frigate Bay beach, you would realize we have done a tremendous amount of dredging of sand. We had some hiccups because Frigate Bay Beach was designated a beach that the tourists could go, and they were giving us negative guest experiences over there, so we had to not dredge sand on the day when ships are in. And you know, now we're having ship almost every day, so we are challenged in doing that. But if you have gone over there recently, you would have seen that the beach has widened. It's a much better beach now, but we still have, they have told me that they have another 2 weeks of work, full working, to be able to complete the actual dredging and placement of the sand. So I can't say when, because we are interrupted by visits to the beach by visitors, and so it's going to take some time, but they've said to me that 2 full weeks is what they require to finish that placement of the sand. And then, of course, we have the boardwalk to put down. We have the trees, the palm trees and coconut trees, etc., and the landscaping to do on that side, on the seaside. And then we still have some work on the on the pond side, which has been very, 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 very challenging in terms of being able to execute that. But I hope that by the first quarter of 2022, we will have all the works at this strip executed. What I can say to you is I said the dredging work and placement of the sand should be finished hopefully with 2 more weeks of full working. So 2 more weeks of full working with the ships we have may very well put us to January, I don't know. But whenever that happens, we are going to move directly from Frigate Bay to South Friars Bay in the area of Shipwreck, because we have serious coastal erosion there. And this was actually one project, Frigate Bay project into Southeast Peninsula over at Shipwreck. So once we demobilize in Frigate Bay, we'll then move to South Friars and complete the works in South Friars to bring back that beach also.
Good morning again. 2.5 questions, Minister. My first question has to do specifically with what are the expectations of the Ministry of Tourism when we sit down and look at the overall of the current issues facing the tourism sector, especially the cruise sector. We know COVID isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We're heading into the winter season, but basically into the winter season. What can taxi operators and tour operators expect from the Ministry and the St. Kitts Tourism Authority as they look forward to 2022, even though we have just about, let's say about 100 cruise ships expected, or 100 cruise calls expected between January and March, just a rough approximation. What is the expectations, between now and then? Second question has to do specifically with, as we begin to roll out and, COVID-19 is still here, what more will the Ministry of Tourism do outside of cruise, the large cruise industry, to rebuild, because this is one of the key pillars of St. Kitts and Nevis' economy? I know, for example, in January, February, there's the Under-19 World Cup and games will be staged here in St. Kitts and Nevis. How is the Ministry of Tourism leveraging these other, whether it be ministries, agencies, organizations, to push tourism and push St. Kitts and Nevis' product on the international scene as we seek to rebound from the impact COVID-19 has had on the sector? And my half question is, how realistic it is that the ministry and St. Kitts and Nevis can see something substantial from the tourism sector when we look at what's happening here at the moment?
Well, how I would answer your last question, let me put it in context, is that we're into November. In September, I would have said to you that it's challenging and we really don't know what's happening in terms of how our success would be, because at that time we were getting a call a week, 2 calls in a month, but now we're having 17 and we had 10 in 1 week. So I think there's hope on the horizon. But our message is, although there is hope, we have to manage our expectations. This is not the industry as it was in 2018 and 2019 when it was bumper. Case in point. In 2018 and 2019, the taxi drivers and the taxi operators weren't concerned about the so-called big person, I believe. because they had their hands full with what they had to deal with. They were overburdened with the business they were getting. Post-pandemic now, the pie is lessened. Less people are coming. The ships are coming 40 to 60% capacity. Okay? We are expecting that capacity to increase. And so there's more hope when that happens. We're expecting that our requirements will be lessened, so that makes it better for us. So I think there's hope. And I want to dwell on this point, because sometimes we feel that manna is going to fall from heaven. That's not going to happen. We have to expect we are going to get less of what we had before, and we work with what we have. And we be contented with what we have and hope for the best for tomorrow. You know? But it appears as though some persons want everything today. That's difficult. We have to understand we're in a different space. These are challenging times. As a matter of fact, I'm ecstatic that we could get the number of ships we're getting now. But it is because of the hard work of my team. And I thank them for that. This didn't come easily. This came by sleepless nights and midnight phone calls and up early and engaging the cruise lines every single day for the past, from since June, July, when people didn't think anything was happening. We were working behind the scenes to get where we are today. This didn't happen by magic. And so, I want us to understand that. So it's a whole rebuilding exercise. And we are grateful that St. Kitts can hold its own at this point in time. And proof of what we are saying is that we have been able to get harmony of the seas. Why? Because we have our independent operators engaged already. We've done all the training. They're ready to go. They're engaged. And so we have the capacity that the ships require. The ships don't just come like that. The ships are there to make money. And so they're not going to come here if we don't have the capacity for them to make money. They recognize we have the capacity, and so they come. And I must say at this point in time too, because sometimes we lose sight of sometimes reality. And as much as persons out there may, be indifferent to, let's say, a scenic railway. Yeah? Some ships only come because of the scenic railway. One, because of its uniqueness, and two, because of the capacity that it has and the capability it has to move people. And so they come. So all of them want to bash them at times. We have to be mindful and grateful and cognizant of the fact that because the ships are coming sometimes because of scenic railway, other people benefit. The Alarab primate vendors, the craft vendors, the taxi operators, the taxi drivers, the ATVs, the safaris. Everybody is in the game. Everybody benefits. And so I think that if we continue to do what we're doing, mindful of the risks of COVID, I think 2022-23 is going to be a fantastic year. I think so, just personally. And I think we fought for the under-19 in January, and we're getting it. That is going to do a tremendous amount of success for us.
Monday, we really need to speak to the destination and what we're able to do, because they're able to see the forward bookings and see the information. And in speaking to American, they can drop the flights anytime. There's a shortage of planes, there's a shortage of crew. When COVID came, they had to park a lot of planes. They had to park a lot of crew were laid off, and many of those persons are not coming back. So I think we are set for the season. We're working with them to ensure, come post-April, what we can secure. But I think what Minister really is looking forward to is next winter, the airlift that we need to secure now for next winter, because that's the way it works in our business. It's not 60 days, it's not 90 days. It's looking forward to 2022, 23, right? Yeah. So that's what we're discussing now to ensure that we have more airlift and more frequency. And the team has been working very, very hard in all source markets. We're very pleased that all of our airlift that we would traditionally have, we have it back. It may not necessarily be the frequency that it ended at in 2020, March 2020, but we have most of the airlift back.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to listeners of ZIZ and to Minister and his team for another press conference. I think we've had a really encouraging update from you on cruise. I know we want to be gradual, but clearly cruise is not. The horse has bolted from the stage in a very robust manner. And so with that, this bubble might need to dissipate a little quicker than we expect if we are going to be able to keep up with the demands that the passengers and the industry itself is going to place on top of us. And with that, obviously, it will bode well for everyone in the business, from the independent operator to the larger cruise tour reps like the Cantos. I know that the trickle down is great from everyone, but one of the concerns that I just thought I'd raise is as we expand the offerings of the tours, some small operators have reached out to the chamber to ask when will they be able to function. Now that's not our purview and it's not our area. So. But I will say, as I look behind Raquel's head on the poster, I see scuba diving. And I know that has been one that has been raised. When will they be allowed? And if they have been since the last meeting?
They have been.
They have been.
Yes.
Okay, that's excellent. So that's good news. One common denominator that I think we need to speak to is vaccination. It's the hot topic. It's something no one wants to speak about, really. And I'm glad the minister raised it, because I think what we see resonating here is that if you're not vaccinated, the world can't really turn. And we're seeing that if you are vaccinated, what can happen? And that's what we see in these sectors, in the cruise sector. And I would like to ask, and in particular, those 650 people, please don't hold up the works. Let's get going. Let's get vaccinated, and let's open this place up and let everyone who has a business, from the smallest operator right up, to be able to do business. And as you say, take the fence down, let the bubble dissipate, and let's be protected. We have a second vaccine offering in Pfizer, which we all wanted. It's here. So come on, guys. Let's just push over that line and finish the job. And I think it would place St. in a very strong position in the OECS, where we would be extremely proud of ourselves to have achieved that 80%. And hopefully our neighbors in the other islands would see us as an example to follow. And so I'm encouraging the vaccination. I'm happy to hear about stayover passengers. I think that's a huge area. We cannot cut our nose to spite our face. They spend significantly, and they rent, and they go to dinner, and they do a whole lot of stuff. And I'm really asking the task force to, if they can put their heads together on this and figure out a way that we can make those stayover passengers experience equally as rewarding as a cruise passenger. And many of them come back later down to buy properties and any number of areas. And so let us try and really find that balance that both sectors can really look at this destination, see what we have to offer, experience of warmth of our people, the tours, the culture, cuisine, everything that we have to offer. And lastly, just to say that I think we are on the right track. I know we have challenges. I know we all get complaints. But I believe that if we continue putting our heads together and trying, there are areas of concerns, yes, but we have to decide how can we open safely and still protecting everyone. And I'm encouraging the taxi drivers who are not vaccinated, who have not done the necessary requirements in terms of being compliant, to do so. If you want to get back in the game, there are hundreds of taxi drivers out there. I'd be interested to hear how many have been and how many are ready to do business. I think that's important to note. That figure, the taxis, you know, are an integral part of tourism. And I think that's important that if you could share that number, I would be interested to hear. And the last point is Port Zante. Is there anywhere when we have multiple ships in port, and they're going to be all of December where that is happening, and most of us as locals tend to shop at Port Zante during Christmas, purchase gifts, any number of things, you know, for the season and just in general to patronize the bars that are there. That's an area that we need to sit and discuss. How can they get both parts of the business, considering the fact that Raquel spoke to the tourists who are coming through do not have a lot of disposable income right now. We have VAT days coming up also. How can we see to protecting those businesses that have been suffocating really for 19 months, still expected to pay rent and operational expenses to bring some business to them from the local community? One thought that came to mind sitting there was maybe evening shopping. Might sound crazy, but if you've been suffering for a long time, you might be willing to open at 6 to 9, and we have night shopping, just like how we have a night market. You know, and we do night shopping and dine in, and you know, it's Christmas. We can always create something. Just some thoughts I thought I will raise. But thanks again for the update. I think it's very encouraging.
Thank you, Chamber President. What I would say is that yes, that's on the last portion of your statement, we are looking into it because, like you, we are concerned. Because if we are saying from December the 5th to the 31st, we're going to have a ship every day, it means between December the 5th and the 31st, we'll have no local shopping per se. And that's a real challenge. It's Christmas, people want to purchase stuff for their loved ones and friends. So it is something that we've put to the task force, but it's something we need to have an urgent answer on, because it's really a troubling one. I mean, when we had one ship a week, it was fine. You could go on the other 6 days. But when you're having a ship every single day, that poses a significant problem. You know, so that's something we have on the front burner. So thanks for that.
Okay, one more question, please.
Actually, if you permit, 2 questions, but they're related. Vaccination, we are considered to have one of the highest vaccination levels in the Eastern Caribbean. Are we using that as leverage to attract visitors to this country? And in relation to that also is our level of competitiveness compared to, let's say, St. Martin or Antigua, perhaps St. Lucia. How are we attempting to maximize whatever bits of high points of St. Kitts and Nevis to get more visitors into this country as we look towards the next season? Some time ago, the Ministry of Tourism, I believe, had a sort of community tourism outlook, and there were some feeder programs going on here and there. But it seems to me that it was not very well coordinated. But perhaps one of the things that we can look at is how do we create within the country itself a destination of excellence in which there is some kind of exposure or training to almost every single citizen and resident of this country, so that we can create a destination of excellence in services, in a whole range of other things. And perhaps small business through the Ministry of Trade and whatnot can all collaborate to create, and the Ministry of Environment and so forth, to create this kind of level of experience that we can then use as a marketing tool, a marketing leverage. Can you comment on those things, please? Thanks.
I would let the CEO comment on most of it, but I'll just touch on the last point when you spoke about the Ministry of Tourism and the community-based tourism aspect that we were trying to achieve and the outreach that we're making. I should tell you that it's a very good program, and we've been really making outreach to the various communities to step up their game so that, you know, to make sure that all of us is a part of the tourism product. I think we have a long way to go in terms of training. We've been training and retraining. I think we need to get our service levels up. What I would tell you, however, that we've been so engaged that just yesterday, actually, we were notified by the OECS that one of our community-based teams came in the top 4 in the entire OECS in terms of their projects that they have put forward to the OECS under the 11th EDF. And it is the group, it's a group out of West Farm. I think the president is a chap called Ian Richards in West Farm. It's the United Villages of West Farm, and they produce a project that has is in the top 4 in the OECS, and hopefully they will get some funding to do to complete their project. And so we've been working with these various groups all across the country, trying to get them engaged, to let them understand that the tourism is just not in Bastille, but they can do things in the outlying communities of such a nature to attract the tourists. So yes, we've been working hard on that to engage them, and I let Raquel answer the other portions.
Thank you, Minister. As it speaks to stay over and our competitive space, one of the difficulties we faced in September, and if you could remember one of the press conferences, is that I spoke to persons already had started to make their bookings for Thanksgiving and for winter, for Christmas. And so where we were at that time with the 4-day quarantine, it put us in a very behind the block space. Nevertheless, the team, especially for the US, because it's our #1 source market, we launched our promotion on October 15th, and it's stay for 4, 5-day free, including breakfast. And our major properties, Park Hyatt and the Marriott, are participating in the offer. What we've seen is that at the time also, because we still had our quarantine at 4 days, persons were still hesitant. So the offer was a booking window that lasted until basically December 31st, but you can come and stay from November 1st until April 30th. What that does is that it allows persons to book now and then come and stay later. We know there would be challenges for Q4, but we're looking at a stronger Q1. And what we're looking forward to in the winter season starting December 15th for 2022-2023 is that we will have all of our hotels, because last night Timothy Beach was communicated to. They are now travel approved, vacation in place, and they will tremendously help us with BA. Also, Awali was given their travel approved, vacation in place status. So those will actually help us for upcoming spring and summer, especially for the BA flight. So what we found is that, yes, we are rebuilding and we may be catching up, but what we've seen with the vaccination rate is, especially, for example, this Thanksgiving Day weekend, we got a lot of queries if persons under 17, if they weren't vaccinated, what would happen to their families. There's a 3-day booking window for cancellation still, because we have to be flexible. The hotels have to be. And so one of the things is that we clarify that and we communicate that. We're always communicating with the travel trade, especially now. In our consumer communication, we've cut down on text and using mostly just images and videos to translate our e-blast to consumers and to the travel trade. We're ensuring that, especially, for example, Expedia, which is our #1 wholesaler online travel agent, we have all the information available to them. So what we're ensuring is that the destination, not just our website, but the information is being communicated. And I think we did it 3 weeks ago. I think Janet, she's not here, but she reminded me. We made a decision after I attended a course with Skift and Travel Zoo that we would now start to put our vaccination rate on our drop-down website box. So when you go to the website, it speaks to the travel requirements, and it tells you every day what our vaccination rate is, because our demographic, people who come to St. Kitts and Nevis, are persons who would want to travel in our competitive space. They want to know that they're going to a safe destination, and that is one of the first things now that they're looking for. So we are making sure that we are communicating this information. As soon as protocols are changed, we're sending out press releases, we're communicating it to everyone in all of our source markets. So I do believe, regardless of whether, yes, COVID is here to stay, the team, we're equipped to move forward in terms of ensuring that the bookings that we want to have come for 2022-23. But we did know from September that the winter season would be a little uneasy. For Christmas, it's not what we like, but we're looking forward to a stronger January, February, and March. So at this time, I would like to just say thank you to all of you for attending Minister's, I would like to say what, every 2 weeks, Minister? Your updates, your press briefings to update our stakeholders and everyone of what's happening in the tourism industry. And hopefully this press conference alleviated some fears or some concerns or provided some clarity. And in the next 2 weeks, we'll have another update for you. Thank you and have a great weekend.